Welcome to Live from the Heart podcast. My name is Anne-Claire Meret. I help beautiful beings feeling empowered to create their lives. I coach, teach, create programs, write books, among other things, and I love it. It took me years of healing and coaching, but I finally found a way back to my heart. Today I thrive and help people thrive too. Everything is happening faster and faster. I feel we are being supported in so many ways. I know we can thrive on a collective level. If you want to create from your heart, you're in the right place. Welcome for another episode of Live from the Heart podcast. Today I'm very happy to welcome from my office in person Christian Kasper, which is my lover, my other half, if I can say it like this. Thank you for accepting to be part of the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward for our conversation.
Me too. Can you please introduce yourself for the people who don't know you yet?
Yeah, my name is Christian. I'm a transformational and trauma-informed coach, and I'm also a breathwork facilitator. And yeah, you mentioned we are living here together as a couple in Costa Rica, Ubita. We moved here a couple of months ago. How long is it ago? 6 months?
Uvita, 6 weeks, and Costa Rica, 6 months.
Yeah, amazing.
It's beautiful. Thank you for this beautiful adventure together.
You're welcome.
So today we're going to talk about a lot of different things, but let's start with the beginning. You are today living a beautiful life. You live in this natural reserve surrounded by monkeys and butterflies, and every day you go to the beach and you enjoy your time and you're self-employed and you mostly make decisions from the heart. Have you always been that way?
No, for sure not. There was for sure a time where I was way more in my head, and I'm still oftentimes in my head. It's still a process that is unfolding for me to live more closer to what would you call the heart wants to call into life. This is a process. It was not always like this, and I think it's getting more and more that I'm living by it.
Did you have any turning points where you actually shifted to live more from your heart, following more your heart, making different kind of decisions? Can you share a few turning points?
Yeah, so I remember that I think the first touch points that I had with this heart essence, what I would call the self, with a capital S. I was touching into it many years ago, where I consciously noticed, there's actually more that wants to be brought to life. It came to me through visions that I, for example, had. I remember, for example, being in a breathwork session, being connected to something that was calling me, a different way of living, or certain ideas that wanted to come to reality, or being on the dance floor as well. I noticed glimpses of what my life could be, and I think what was happening there that I was actually touching into the self with a capital S, or into my heart.
On the dance floor where we met.
On an ecstatic dance for sure as well, but also many years before that, when I was not completely yet on this conscious journey, when I was, for example, clubbing in Berlin. I remember having some moments where I was like, this is what life should be for me. And it took me a while to actually connect back to this essence, and what connected me back to this essence was at some point breathwork, when I actually explored breathwork. Because suddenly I noticed there's actually something that I can always come back to.
Yeah. When did you discover breathwork?
Breathwork I discovered probably around 5 years ago, and I think I was listening, I was somehow hearing about Wim Hof. I don't exactly know how I heard about him. And then I was looking on YouTube for him, and he had this breathing technique or this whole method that he calls the Wim Hof method. And part of this method is also breathing exercise, which brings you into a really calm state and activates certain parts in your brain. And I was doing this breathing exercise, and I was curious because I noticed some shifts in me. And then I looked for a breathwork facilitator in Berlin, and I found someone who was she just started to use her own breathwork technique with other people, to share it with other people. And I remember we were in her apartment with 6 other people, and we were doing this kind of breathing technique. And I went there every week for a half year probably. And then I went traveling. I went to Bali. I went to Kupangan, where we met in Bali. And there on the way, when I was traveling, I was exploring other breathing exercise, breathing methods. And every time I was in a journey, I was connected back to this essence, where I could suddenly experience a connection to myself. I could experience more calmness. I could experience creativity, compassion. There was always some courage in it when I was stepping into it. There was always something that gave me the feeling of, you can do that. Whatever this vision was, it was coming into the place during this kind of experiences.
Beautiful. Do you think it could be a vision of that is sent from you in the future, telling you, "Psst, you can become that"?
That's an interesting way to see it. And I was oftentimes using a certain imagination technique where I was connecting to my future self, which was more wise. And I think what this future self basically is the self with capital S, that is unblended from all the doubts, from all the fears, and from all the expectations from the outside world. So yeah, in a way, it is a smarter and wiser version of myself, a version that I will probably embody more and more in the future. So in a way, I think it is true in a way that this is maybe the future self whispering to me.
Wisdom from the future, the elder in you.
Exactly.
Thank you. Since I've known you, I've seen you fascinated and really passionate about Carl Jung's work. You're reading a lot about the inner work and how you can discover yourself, and interested in psychotherapy, but also in many, many different modalities of self-discovery and self-empowerment. Is it something that comes from nowhere, or did your family plant a seed in you? How come you're interested in all of that?
Yeah, family for sure played a role here. I was growing up in a family which I would say was or is really open-minded, especially towards spiritual topics and esoteric topics. And I remember when I was growing up that my mom was, for example, using, together with my grandma and my aunt, something that's called is it the OJI board? Do you call it OJI board?
In French we say Ouija, or maybe in English Ouija.
Yeah.
It's the board with the letters where
Exactly.
you speak to the...
To the past, to people who passed, for example,
Yeah.
or to other identities. Yeah, I remember that they were doing this kind of things, and I think this already opened me up to that there's actually more than just what we perceive in this material world. But my mom is also really into Osho, for example, into spiritual gurus like Osho, Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie. And she was already, when we were really young, she was already doing meditations with us, or aura seeing, trying to see the aura of someone else. And I was also initiated into Reiki in an early age, somewhere in my teenagers. So I think obviously this somehow created an imprint of me. But there was then also a time where I was not connected to that anymore for a long time. I knew that there's something that I will, in a way, I knew that there was something that I will go back to at some point, but it was not the right time for me. There was a time where I was focusing more on making a career, making a living, focusing on just other things than on my internal world.
What did you study at school?
What I studied in university, you mean?
Yeah.
I studied art and technology. I studied in the Netherlands for 5 years. It was a study which included design, broadcasting techniques, photography, graphic design, web design, and a bit of psychology as well. Yeah.
And then what jobs did you have?
So during the 5 years, I was working for 1 year, and then full time I was working in an agency who was creating commercials for the TV. So this was a place where I worked for 1 year, which was really tiring. I was working there long hours. I remember it was not only one day, but I was working from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. And it was a nice job. The thing that I was doing there, it created some satisfaction in me because I was connecting, I think, to one important value of mine, which is beauty. So I had to basically make images nicer, more beautiful for the commercials. So this was something that I really enjoyed, but I didn't enjoy to work for such a long time and then only get so little benefits of it, financial benefits especially.
So you changed.
So then I changed. I got back to university, finished my Bachelor of Arts, and decided to work as a user researcher, which is all about understanding the human mind, the human needs better for the purpose of driving a business.
Yeah.
So this was a job that I had for 8 years.
Yeah, this is when we met. You had that job and you were studying breathwork at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was working in a big fashion e-commerce in Berlin for 8 years and was doing user research there. And also there was something that I really liked, which was also connected to one of my core values, which is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So the nicest things that I was doing in this job was having one-on-one conversation with someone, asking them questions and asking them not only superficial questions, but also deeper questions to get to the root of their motivation for using specific apps or for using specific shops, or why they actually love fashion, why they're motivated for fashion, why they buy clothes, even though they have a closet full of clothes.
Yeah. And then you've decided to go on a sabbatical. This is when we met. What happened in you to think, oh, I need a break?
Yeah, so you mean before? What happened to me, why I needed the sabbatical? That's interesting. I never have really thought about it. I mean, I haven't thought about it for a long time. But I think what was happening is I was in a bit of a rat race. It was always repeating over and over again what I was doing. And it was just time for a disruption of this routine to get a bit more clarity, because in a part of me knew that I didn't want to stay in this job. So that's why I was also working for such a long time in the same company. I was not switching any jobs in 8 years. I was just working for one company because I knew that this is not something that I want to continue doing just in a different company. That was really clear to me. And I think this brought me then to actually do a sabbatical, to clear my mind and to see what's actually next for me. Yeah, and during this time I explored breathwork, and in during my sabbatical I made the decision of becoming actually a breathwork facilitator.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I like to ask this question. So apparently you could follow your heart because you've made big decisions in your life, like traveling, like quitting your job and being self-employed, like pursuing your dreams, changing countries, things like that. It comes with challenges. What kind of challenges have you experienced when you wanted to follow your heart, and then like which kind of walls did you hit?
So there were for sure internal walls that I was hitting, doubts that were coming up about if this is the right thing. And as I mentioned, in breathwork I always had the courage. Then again, I think breathwork was a tool that was supporting me along the journey to step out of the doubts, step into myself, into self with capital S, and to experience actually again the courage, the creativity, and so on, the calmness. There were doubts about, okay, is this really the right thing for me? Is this something that I should do? I think for a long time before that, before I actually went on a sabbatical, there was also a bit of doubt of, can you actually live this way? And then during the sabbatical, I met a lot of people, including you, who were living a different way. So I think this gave me also courage to take the step then. There were also different dynamics in play inside of me that were telling me like, oh, maybe you just switch the job a little bit and you stay in corporate company for a while longer. So I also did this after coming back to sabbatical. I changed the position that I had in this company. But I quickly realized that this was not really giving me any satisfaction. So I noticed that there was only one way, which was following what I was envisioning for myself. And doubts were coming up, internal battles were coming up. Externally, I was thinking what was coming up externally. I mean, for sure, financial aspects, like, okay, can I really support myself when I now quit my job? But luckily, I was in Europe, and in most countries in Europe, you have a good supportive system.
Yeah.
In Germany, I got unemployment money for a while, so I was basically covered for almost 9 months. And this for sure gave me some safety, that I thought, okay, there's actually not much that I can lose. Maybe after a year I will notice like, oh no, this is not working at all, and this is actually not something that I really like. Then I would still be able to actually go back to corporate world. So there was always a bit of safety, which is a privilege, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And how did you start helping others? Was it obvious for you that you would be someone which would be at service for others in the way that you're doing it today, which is breathwork, coaching, teaching breathwork, compassionate inquiry, which you can explain maybe for people who don't know about it?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we were only focusing now on breathwork, and in the beginning there was just a clear image like, okay, I will do breathwork. I'm not sure yet how I will make my living out of that. But yeah, it was still when I was working in corporate company, we had this plan. I was reducing my working days, right? This is maybe also something, so oftentimes like you think you don't have so much time. What I was doing because of that is that I reduced my working days to 4 days a week. So I had one more day during the week to actually explore other things or to focus more on breathwork. And during this time, I also decided to do coaching training at Selfcraft. I was really not sure if I want to become a coach.
I remember.
There was some struggles with the idea of being a coach, and with for me, there was some stigma to the label of being a coach, even though I saw many great examples,
Thank
including
you.
you.
Yeah, therapy was more
Yeah,
your thing. But I understand because I also had this image that therapy is more noble, is
yeah,
more the healing path, and that coaching is more like, yeah, you can do it.
yeah, exactly. And there's also, I think, some bad examples around coaching. It's oftentimes what you see as a sales aspect of coaching, right?
Yeah.
Because you see it on YouTube, the commercials in between, some coaches telling you and trying to sell you their product, so it feels a bit more salesy, which I really didn't like about coaching. And I think
Yeah.
mm, this was a bit difficult for me to disrupt and to see, okay, there's actually more to coaching than the sales part, which is just a
Yeah.
small part of it. Yeah, so I decided to become a coach and did this coaching training. And at this point, it was also really clear to me what I actually how I want to support people, which is changing their life. I think this also has to do because I was in this phase of changing my life, and I had some learnings that I thought, oh, they are valuable actually to share, and I can help the people to take the next steps on the journey to live a more heart-based life. And yeah, so I started to create my first service around that. I was doing it with some coaches, and but there was always a curiosity for me, which also brought me to Carl Jung's work, for example, or to psychology. I always wanted to go a bit deeper, and then I decided to learn from Gabor Mate. He has an amazing training called Compassionate Inquiry, and Compassionate Inquiry is around finding some truth in oneself. And yeah, and this is something that I'm right now studying. It's a 1 year long training, and what I notice is that it's really, really helping to focus on what is actually happening inside of you and not so much focusing on what's happening outside of you, but always coming back, because everything that how we perceive the things outside are basically coming from a standpoint from the past. So we observe something, we interpret it based on what we experienced in the past. And this is what I really, really find interesting. So every time we get triggered, it's basically the past talking to us. And compassionate inquiry is helping to ripple it down and to see that you are actually not reacting to what is really happening, but you're reacting to your traumas, to your inner wounds.
Yeah. We've had a conversation recently together on Instagram Live about the nervous system, and we were sharing how we have different kind of reactions because I am more in a hyper reactive state quite often, especially with what's happening in the world right now, and you are more grounded. Your nervous system is not so reactive like mine. But this is something that we can train, that we can improve. Can you share a bit about it?
Yeah, so this is also something that I discovered through the work of compassionate inquiry, something that's called the polyvagal theory, and I don't want to go so deep into polyvagal because I think
Yeah.
that's too broad of a topic. But it's basically around how to create safety for oneself, because oftentimes we get triggered and we end up in of one survival state, and sometimes it is withdrawing from the situation, or sometimes it is fighting the situation. And for both reactions, there's a good reason for it, and the reason is always lying in the past. And a question that I always ask myself, if I notice that I'm triggered, if I notice that I withdraw, or if I notice that I, for example, also sometimes get tired if my nervous system is reacting, I sometimes get tired. And I ask myself, okay, what can I do to create more safety right now? Because even though maybe I'm not really conscious about it, but there's a lack of safety, and this is why I'm going into the survival state. So how can I bring in safety for me? And sometimes it means, okay, I will go now to my room and to just chill by myself for a few minutes, and this will really balance my autonomic nervous system. Or sometimes it's connecting with you, or sometimes it is leaving a certain situation. For example, if you walk a busy street and there are a lot of trucks, a lot of cars, I have a really difficult time to connect with you.
Yeah.
For a really good reason, because I don't feel safe there. So I'm not able to connect. This has no priority there. The only priority is survival. So I can't connect. So what can I do to create more safety? To leave the street.
Yeah. And communicate with me. Otherwise, I continue talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being such a good communicator and not waiting for me to guess what's happening with you, but sharing it with me because it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And I think this creating safety, it always brings you back to the self.
Yeah.
It always brings you back to your heart, and you can suddenly connect back to your heart. Because if you're in a survival state, you will have a difficult time to connect to your heart.
Yeah.
So what can you do to create safety here? And oftentimes this also means to unblend from certain thoughts that are coming to your mind. And this is where meditation, for example, comes into place.
Yeah.
Really well, because here you start just observing your thoughts, what's coming up for you, and by being in this observer state, you suddenly can see, oh, it's actually, this is not me, this is just something that is going on in my mind, that's not me. And then suddenly you are able to connect back to your heart, because oftentimes what is happening is that the doubts are taking over, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any choice anymore. We believe we don't have any choice anymore, and we just think this is reality, which is just in our mind.
Yeah.
And if we realize that this is just in our mind, we are really closer to a more heart-based way of living.
Mm. Can you share the benefits for you that you have noticed since you are more in the heart space, since you have a routine which is more where there is more time for self-observation, self-love, self-care, knowing yourself and exploring yourself? What has shifted in your life?
What has shifted in my life? I feel more grounded. I feel more balanced in a way. I think it's difficult to tell what has the biggest influence here. I mean, we are also in an amazing environment, right?
Yeah, but
But I truly
it's a
believe,
side effect of
exactly,
following your heart.
Yeah, exactly, that's true. And I really believe that this kind of environment is more suited for humans than being in a crowded city.
Yeah.
Where so many influences, you're automatically in an autonomic nervous state where you either like try to withdraw or try to fight or try to flee.
Yeah.
And in this environment, which is so calming, we are always in sunlight. We are always at the beach. We don't see many cars. We don't see many people. So I think this creates a lot of calmness for me. It also creates more focus in what I'm doing, because I better understand what I actually have to do, and then I just follow it. I also have more trust nowadays than before. Before that, I think there were way more doubts about what to do. And for sure, I mean, all these kind of things are still coming up for me, but I think it's getting better and better.
Yeah, awesome. What about the ability to say yes and to say no to things? Has it changed? Because I know there is a lot of people who are lacking clarity, and maybe that can help. Like, how did you become someone which is able to say, oh no, it's not for me, or yeah, I feel it's right?
Okay, so different things are coming up for me. A question that I like to ask myself is this for what is this in service of? The decision that I want to make. If I say yes, what is it in service of inside of me? because what I then oftentimes recognize is that, oh, there's a part in me that wants to protect me, and the decision that if I would say yes to it, I would support this part, but this would not be in alignment to what actually my heart wants to do. But that doesn't mean that I ignore this part that tries to protect me, that wants to make the decision, but I get in touch with this part inside of me and see what it needs for me to create more safety. If it doesn't mean that I say yes to this opportunity that would create safety for this part inside of me, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is one question that I ask myself, and sometimes it's simple, right? I remember one time that was still in Berlin, but I really like this example. You were asking me, I was coming to you in the morning, and I was like, I don't know if I should go into the forest. You
I
remember?
found it so weird that you asked me if you should go into the forest.
I was like, oh, maybe you should do something else. I was unsure, and then you asked me like, okay, just close your eyes, take a few breaths. Do you want to go to the forest? You asked me, and I knew that my heart was saying yes. Myself was saying yes. I want to go to the forest. But there was another part which said, no, I want to stay cozy. I want to
come back to bed with me.
Exactly. But that was not really what I actually wanted to do. This was just the part that likes the comfort. Which is also fine, right? But there was something else that wanted to be nurtured at this point.
Yeah. If you would give an advice to someone which doesn't know where to start to follow his or her heart, to start making shifts in his her life, what would you say?
I think finding practices that connect you to this heart space. And there are many different practices, right? I think for everyone it's different. For me, what I mentioned, it was breathwork, especially breathwork, but it's also just having long walks in nature. The questions maybe then like, okay, how do I know if it's a heart talking or if it's just a part inside of me talking to me to do certain things?
How do you know?
How do I know? So what I notice for myself is if I really take the time to just see what's going on in my mind and my body around a certain decision, for example, and just try to unblend from everything that's going on, there's suddenly some clarity coming through. And this is then oftentimes rather the heart than something else. And I say oftentimes because sometimes the inner parts that are then taking over, they are so subtle that you don't notice it anymore. But I think this is something you get more sensitive to it through this kind of practices, for example, breathwork or meditation. You could get a sense on how this voice actually sounds inside of you. And oftentimes it's also a body feeling, also like going back to the other question that you had before. If it's a no, you can oftentimes feel it in your body. I remember when I was going back to the office after I quit my job and I had to pick up stuff. I entered the office, I suddenly felt so much constriction in my body, like I got tense in my body. And this was my body reacting to the outside world of saying, oh no, I don't want to be here, because my body didn't understand yet that I quit the job. So it doesn't understand that. But it can only learn through experiences. So if I would have probably gone more often to the office, showing my body it's safe because I'm not working there anymore, it would have probably then shifted. This constriction wouldn't be there anymore. But I was doing for such a long time, and every time I entered this office, I actually felt this constriction, even though I was not aware. But after I got back to the office, it was like remembering what was happening in my body. So that my body was remembering what was all the experience that I had at the office, that I was not really satisfied there.
Yeah.
So I think you get more sensitive through certain exercises.
Yeah. And there is a quality of observation. You become better observing the triggers and how you actually feel, and it becomes more clear. Yeah. What do you think will happen if everyone developed this kind of awareness and allow themselves to live more from the heart?
Okay. So I believe if you're in a state of the heart, you are, what I always experience here in the state is I'm more curious, I'm more calm, I'm more creative, I'm more compassionate, and I'm also more connected. And if you embody all the things, you realize that your actions that you may be doing, they're actually hurting the earth, for example, Mother Earth. So I believe if you are in this, or hurting other people, or hurting the environment whatsoever, and I believe if you're more in the state, you become more conscious about the actions and the influences you actually have on them, and you're more compassionate, so you will make decisions differently from a more compassionate place.
So more consciousness.
More consciousness, having more understanding how connected we are to the outside world, and also having more compassion. Yeah, I think it would be a society that is more kind, more careful, more caring.
Yeah. It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think the questions are really good.
Thank you.
I think I really emptied my mind in this conversation.
And the questions you suggested, and the observations and the exercises, the experiences you suggested, are already a very good start for whoever wants to explore. And how can we follow your heart? What's your heart? Sorry, I do follow your heart every day. How do we follow your work and what you have to offer in the world? Where can we find you?
On Instagram, it is I am Christian Kasper.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a website and a newsletter. It is christiankasper.org. And yeah, these are the main platforms where I am on.
Yeah, I will put the links.
Yeah.
And you offer one-on-one coaching and teaching, right?
Exactly. So these are my two main services. One-on-one coaching, it is 8 sessions long, and we always have like 1 to 2 weeks in between. And the idea around this service is to support people to bring something new into their life, to change their life, to become more free, and to follow something that I dream of to have in their life. And then the second service that I'm having together with 2 other dear friends, it is a breathwork facilitator training, which is starting in June, 1st of June 2022.
In English?
In English, yeah. Everything is in English. I also offer the coaching in German, but the training will be for sure only in English from now.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Likewise. You're always invited to talk about whatever you want.
Thank you.
À bientôt.
Okay.
Thank you for your presence. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it, like it, save it. You can follow me and connect with me via social media and my website, simply with my name, Anne-Claire Méret. See you soon with more content from the heart.